And here we go. 5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
White takes the heat.
Red takes the heat.
Take the heat!
Take the Heat, a podcast powered by Liveheats, the all-in-one platform for modern sports competition. Try it now at liveheats.com. Welcome to Take the Heat. I'm your host, Mitchell Salazar. We're loving all the support and how you're trying out some of the tips from our experts. On today's episode is Nolan Rapoza. Nolan has not only been successful at the qualification series level, he's also been on the cusp of qualifying for the championship tour 2 times. Nolan takes some questions from competitive surfers, the Short Sisters, and Ned Hart. He talks through the pressure of a make or break heat and gives some top tips to help you take your next heat. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Take the Heat. I'm your host, Mitchell Salazar, and today joining us is none other than number 28 on the rankings at the moment, Nolan Rapoza from Long Beach, California. Nolan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Mitch.
Nolan, well, first of all, tell us how you got into surfing, because I believe that you're not from a surfing family originally, correct?
Yeah, no, I was raised in Long Beach, and my dad wasn't really a surfer, but he loved surfing all the time. So he would take me out down to Seal Beach, where I live now, and yeah, I mean, wasn't too serious of like a start, for me. I mostly was into other sports like playing soccer or golf with my brother and stuff, but yeah, I guess every summer kind of like just got hooked on surfing, and yeah, my dad loves it. My whole family loves it, so we would just go consistently, and then it just like contests, and it's my life.
And why the decision to stick with surfing rather than one of the other sports?
Um, just cause yeah, the freedom of surfing, like being in the ocean, and like on like by yourself. When I was with the team and stuff, I love competing with the team. Like so fun losing and winning with your friends like on a team. But just like the freedom of surfing by yourself, and all the mistakes that you make are all going to be on you, and just like learning about different aspects of life, I guess, through it. Just it's a really good learning space. I just feel like, I don't know, I just was hooked on it.
It's almost an artistic expression, you could say.
For sure, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it just was able to create whatever I wanted with my own creativity, and just enjoy it with some friends too, but mostly just like by yourself. You win and you lose, and it's just all cool experience.
Well, speaking of like team camaraderie and whatnot, you actually competed for Team USA a few times as a junior, and I believe you also competed at the open level too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did both as well. It's tough to say what I enjoy competing in more, like singular or with a team, but any chance I get to compete with a team in surfing, I always like to join. Um, my first experience was in Ecuador, and that was pretty crazy experience. Like, place I've never been before. I still have yet to go back there, but the waves were amazing. And it was nerve-wracking because like I never competed in a level like that before with all these amazing surfers from all around the world, and so I didn't really have like high expectations. I actually was thinking I was going to lose pretty early in the contest for that first ISA event, and I ended up going all the way to the finals, and I think I might have been like, I finished the highest in my division from America. Um, can't remember. I think either Jake or Griffin might have gotten second or fourth or something. But that really made me realize like how surfing could be like a serious thing for me. I think after at that point, like, I mean, obviously all the other amateur events I did like were cool and fun, but when you compete against a whole different country, like you start to feel like you actually belong.
Did you feel added pressure given that you were competing for Team USA as well? Was it something that made a difference to you?
Oh, to me, it was like an honor, honestly, just because like all the other surfers that I looked up to my whole career, they all competed for America, and I just wanted to represent the flag the same way that all those other famous surfers were surfing for, and any chance that I get to represent my country, I always would like love to. I feel like America has such a very talented crop of surfers that if you're able to represent them as a country, then you're making right decisions and you're surfing at a really high level.
Right, and given that you competed a few times as a junior, and then you got the call up, I think it was 2016 in Costa Rica, right? That you competed for Team USA.
Yeah, were you there, Mitch? I'm pretty sure you were
I
there.
wasn't there that year, but I surfed for Mex a few times as a junior, and then I remember
Uh huh.
Brett Simpson won that year, and I mean it was a huge call up for you. That's why I'm asking because they had a huge crop of people to select, and they went with you. So Ryan Simmons entrusted
Uh
you to
huh.
do a good job. What was that feeling like?
That was actually probably one of the most fun experiences I had surfing in the ISAs, just because like I wasn't like the oldest, but I didn't feel like I was super young because other competitors were like my age surfing in it. But like Simmons and Simo, or Simpson and Simo, both kind of I think were talking about who they were going to select, and I was super honored to be selected and compete with them, especially Brett being on my team because that guy is full of knowledge, and if he trusts my surfing ability to compete in those events, then like it's a big confidence boost for me. So yeah, I had a blast that trip. We stayed Costa Rica. I forget the hotel, but we all had a great time. I just remember like just laughs the whole trip, and yeah, Tia won that year, so we all celebrated. And yeah, it was a really cool. I think that was a huge learning experience too, like competing with all the older people at the time. Just like learning how to manage a whole event because that event is like the longest lasting event. You have to surf so many heats and stuff, so it's just like how to like nourish my body, I guess, and stuff. Because I ended up getting heat stroke like on the opening ceremony, and there's just countless stories from that event. But like it was just a really cool learning experience for myself.
I mean, that's awesome to hear. It's cool to hear that you were able to surf with and against your peers at the same time too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like you can also use heat strategy to like help make both you guys make it through the heats and stuff, and there's all different tactics, especially when you're going into like team events, like knocking out another surfer that might be ahead of you in the point system as a team. So, yeah, it was super fun experience.
Okay, so let's flash back 2011, Puerto Escondido. I met you there. You were 13 years old. I was 17, and I still remember you and John Mills sitting side by side next to me in the competitors area for the QS, the 4 star in Puerto. Now you fast forward to your late teens. I'm talking 2016, 2017. You won a Pro Junior Newport Beach. After that, in 2019, you won a QS event in Arica and El Gringo. What made and what catapulted you into stardom here in Southern California compared to your early teenage years?
That's a good question because there is like kind of a gap between like when like my levels of surfing. And so, like I said, like that first ISA event, like that was one of the first like realizations for myself, like that I was good enough to compete against all these people. But then there's kind of a gap between like in the juniors and then going into like the QS, like my rookie season or like my first couple of seasons of the QS, like was a real big learning curve for myself. But I think the biggest momentum I had going into my QS professional years and stuff was from my junior pro experience that year. There was, obviously a high level of surfing in all the events. Griffin he wasn't in all of them. He was in like half of them, and like Jake Marshall was in most of them, and Levi Slossons and all the competitors. I mean, um, John, Mel, Tyler, all of them. So it was cool being able to be like the most consistent American in the junior pros that year. The first event I think was at Cabo San Lucas, and I lost to Griffin in the last like 20 seconds, and it was heartbreaking. I remember. Um, and so then after that, I just wanted to win so bad, and I think I got second in like almost every other event or most of the events. I got second, and I was just like, when can I get the win? And finally, I got the win at Virginia Beach against Griffin, which I was ecstatic about. But I felt like that whole season really built my confidence up a lot to go into the QS season, because there's so many good surfers and so many smart competitive surfers too that make heats all the time. And so that's like what I really encourage most surfers when they're coming up into their first few seasons of the QS is to really learn your heat knowledge and heat strategy, because people they overlook it so much. And it is such a simple thing, but people make mistakes so much more than you would think they would in heats. And so that, I guess, was my learning curve between the juniors and then going into Eureka, winning Eureka. I still was learning. I feel like I was still kind of a rookie at that point, trying to compete against all these people. But El Gringo is just such a special wave and special place, Chile. Like I've always wanted to go back. Like that place is probably my favorite place to go to. But El Gringo, was such a scary wave. Everyone talked about it so much before the event. And I remember showing up for the event, and there was 40 guys in this tiny little peak, and I'm just like, this is this is more dangerous than pipe, because it's right on reef, and it's a tighter peak closer to the reef, on dry reef. So I was just there's no point to free surf and hurt myself, because I heard numerous stories of people hurting themselves at El Gringo. So I actually, my very first surf at El Gringo was in my heat. And so I think my barrel make ratio was over the roof in the contest for some reason, just because I had this connection with El Gringo. And I remember I made a few heats, and my really good buddy Chris from El Gringo from Chile was like, "Oh, you have really good connection with Gringo." And I for some reason I took that a little bit to heart, because I kind of felt it in a way. And then finals day I was sick and almost couldn't surf. And my buddies forced me to surf my heat, and I ended up winning the contest. And I just I don't know, I just felt some crazy connection to El Gringo. Every single time I was in a heat, it was just gifting me the best and most perfect waves in the heat. And I mean, that was probably one of the most cool experiences I've ever experienced in my life. So yeah, I want to go back to El Gringo really bad.
Nolan, you just broke down and gave us excellent information, especially when you were talking about, that heat strategy and how you can learn it. Those are things that are actually applicable to people that are coming up and that are actually going to listen to the pod. And in that situation of not surfing a wave that's as heavy, as dangerous, as difficult, what's your typical approach to not competing or surfing a wave that you're going to for the first time?
Typical, as you mean, any spot I'd go to, if I'm going to Brazil, next week for that event.
Yeah.
I would most definitely urge anyone to surf before the wave before the contest. The more wave knowledge you get is such a huge advantage for these competitors and stuff. But I guess when it comes down to pipe, you definitely want to learn that wave. But when it's a barrel wave, you're not turning a lot, so you're not having to read lines. It's more you have to, for a barrel at least, a slab, other than I would say pipe or chopu or something, you kind of just have to make sure you're deep enough and don't stall too much or stall enough, So I guess that was one of the only events that I would have done that. But every other wave I go to for a contest, I'm always trying to surf out there as much as possible. Unless it's Huntington, because I feel like I surf Huntington every other day here at home.
Well, saying that, how much do you think the experience of you putting in hours here at both Huntington, Newport, your local spots, actually prevailed at the wave and gave you the win?
At El Gringo?
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of help here in America, in California, Orange County, to help you know how to surf big barrels like that, So, but leading up to that event, it's the summertime, and there's some solid south swells coming in, and I remember I was surfing the wedge with Tyler and Sage Burke the whole week before I left to Chile. And I remember Tyler and them were laughing "Oh, we just got such perfect El Gringo practice." And I didn't really realize it, because I'd never been to Chile before that trip. but like fully did play a hand. Like the week prior to leaving to the contest, we got firing wedge, and I think it helped a lot. Just in my confidence, at least for like knowing I wasn't scared to go on waves too, and like I guess reading a barrel a little bit. But you don't. It's all like in the moment. You're having to learn all these things. I feel like, but wedge was a huge benefit for me.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, the wedge is just the one big peak and the drop most of the time. So if you're doing the same thing at
Yeah.
Arica, then I guess it worked out well. Now, go to 2021, first year that the Challengers happened. Before there were 6-star primes, they were the primes, whatever you want to call them. But you actually had to qualify for them this time. So in 2021, you only had 4 events to try to qualify for the CT. You finished within the top 30, one of the highest finishing Americans, and you're still one of the more underrated surfers, but you had a third place finish at the first event at home in Huntington Beach. What changed? What made you elevate your game and pursue that qualification for the CT?
That's like one of the easiest answers for me because I like to dedicate all of it to Matt Myers. Matt Myers he's the one who has installed all the heat strategy knowledge and everything into me. This is why I'm like telling and urging people that they need to learn how to not make mistakes as much. Um, so yeah, before the U.S. Open, I went to Waco with Matt Myers and John Mel and Brisa Hennessy, and I wasn't planning on coaching with Matt or anyone. I didn't have a plan yet. I wanted to have a coach for the U.S. Open, obviously. After Waco, I asked Matt if he would coach me for it because he was coming down to coach Brisa and Alyssa, and he said sure. And sure enough, I had like the best result I've ever had in such a big event, and he really broke down like game plans for heats, how to manage a heat like with priority and just taking all mistakes away pretty much. So yeah, going into heats, building the confidence too, like because he's really good with working with the athletes and knowing what triggers you, what doesn't trigger you, and I think he really was on my side for the first time I've like my first ever experience of coaching with Matt, and like he really just like built my confidence up before the event and just like got me to game plan every single one of my heats, and it really just was just like such a flow state with Matt in that event. So then yeah, ever since then it's just been like what so much more consistent with me and like figuring out how to manage a heat.
What kind of pressure did you feel, if any, competing at home and getting that semifinal finish when you were this close to making the final two, Nolan? I remember you on a roll.
Yeah, Jake had to get me in the last 30 seconds of that one. But pressure at home is like I feel like it's almost more for me. I just cuz I've competed in the US Open. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure I competed twice. Or no, maybe just one time. I got the wild card into it, or then the year after I somehow qualified. I can't remember, but I've lost most times at in the U.S. Open at Huntington. First heat, like didn't even put up a good heat. Like I had like an 8-point heat total or something. And then going into that event that I got third at, I was pretty nervous, but with Matt's communication and like headspace, he really just like told me to not second guess myself and just do what I do and just like own it, you know? Um, it kind of took it away. And then I remember going up against Kolohe in my very first heat of that event, and I started off with like a 7.33 or something, and just right off the get go, I finished that wave and was just like, all right, it's on. Like you're gonna make a good heat, and even if you don't make this heat, like you're gonna like go down swinging, So I think that was just like the very first wave I had in the U.S. Open really just like gave me all the momentum to keep going.
Right, it kind of put you in a mental space where you were already thinking that if you're able to beat a guy that's a top 10 surfer on the CT, who aren't you able to beat?
Exactly. Yeah, and then going in through all those heats, I had like a bunch of CT surfers in my heats, and like I almost like preferred to have a CT surfer in my heat because it was just like feeling my fire, I guess, a little bit more because I was like wasn't scared. I wanted to like compete against the best, and it was fun to prove everyone wrong that I was able to.
Why is that? Why do you think people still overlook you?
I don't. It's a good question. I have no idea why I'm overlooked. I don't feel like feel like I don't want to say I'm overlooked. Like I feel like people know I'm good, but just like I'm just not like promoted like a lot of other people are. Um, but I like being that dark horse, you know. I like people not knowing, you know. I like going into heats and just being like, who's this guy? Like this like doubting me. I love doubters. Doubters just really fuel my fire a lot. And you know, in the moment when you're thinking about all those negative thoughts, it it actually like you think it's all this bad thoughts and you're being all negative on yourself, but realistically like in your subconscious where you don't even realize it, it's actually like really fueling your fire and like motivates you to do a lot more things than you realize. And like I guess I'm kind of like realizing all that nowadays, but I love the doubters. Keep doubting.
Hey, well, you made the semifinals at the first event this year in the Challengers. You lost to the eventual champion, another underrated surfer too, in Callum Robson. This guy finished number 10 in the world in his first year on the CT. What is it about those people that like to consider themselves dark horses? And actually, it seems like it not only elevates their game, but you're actually seeing a world champion out of it right now in Felipe. The last two Brazilian world champions were two guys that were probably thought to have been. Felipe hadn't had a shot in a few years.
Totally, yeah. I mean, I love watching Felipe and like Italo because I feel like Gabriel has taken the spotlight from those guys, you know. But yeah, that heat against Callum still kind of like gets me to this day. Like, um, it was just that was such a crazy heat against Callum because it was back and forth the whole heat. Like I started with an 8.5, I think he started with a 5 or something, and I was in the lead feeling confident as hell. And then he got like a 6 or a 7 or something, and he was back into the lead. And then I was fighting for a score, and I ended up getting the 5, and then I went back in the lead. And it was this is within like a 30-minute period, obviously, and we're getting jet skis, so it's like it's a slow process. But every 5 minutes, like it would change. He would be in the lead, I would be in the lead, he would be in the lead. And so the last 2.5 minutes or something. I can't really remember. I was in the lead, and he needed a high 5, I think, or something like a 6. And he caught a wave way on the inside. I had priority out the back, and I didn't know what to do because he was like all the way on the inside. And I'm like, dude, there's no way he's getting that score all the way in there. Like, do I paddle in there? And they were like giving away taking a priority away if you're paddling into inside the point. So I was like, they're gonna take my priority away. Like, what do I do? And so up until that point, like me and Matt had like every single game plan dialed, and he like didn't even know what to do either. You could see him like trying to wave his hat. He didn't know, and so I'm like paddling into him, and he was just too far away from me. So the last 30 seconds, he caught a wave, doesn't get the score. The wave sucked. He kicks out, paddles back out, and with like 10 seconds left, he gets the wave right behind it, and the thing doubles up into a perfect one, and he gets the 7.5 and gets me like just the last seconds, like just straight through my fingers. I was so heartbroken, but I mean, it was fun competing against Callum. That was my first heat against him, so I hope to serve against him more.
Nolan, it's crazy to me that not only have I known you for almost 12 years, but to see you evolve from a 13-year-old into, I mean, you're a man now, you're 24, but to see you progress in your competitive career, I just want to say congratulations because it's really something beautiful.
Thanks, Mitchell. No, I love seeing you at every single one of my events. Like it actually, your presence builds up my positivity and my confidence. I feel like at events, just like knowing that you're there, like announcing or just like being there, like to support. Like I really appreciate your support because you're just such a good human. And yeah, I mean, when we first met, it was crazy how we first met. I still can remember this day. Like, and not a lot of people you can remember like the first day you actually met them, but I fit like very, very. I can clearly remember the first time we met at Porto, and like, yeah, it just has been such a good friendship since.
Yeah, don't make me cry, Nolan. Okay, we're gonna get too
Yeah.
emotional here on the pod. Hey, Quick question in terms of advice for all the Groms coming up. What kind of advice, or maybe the most important piece of advice, you would give them for maybe controlling their emotions in those high pressure situations like you were talking about right now?
Yeah, I mean, controlling those it's a tough one because there's gonna be so many times where like it doesn't go your way. It just wasn't meant to be, you know? And so you don't ever want to like double guess your thoughts, but like that's a lot of where the mistakes come is when you're double guessing yourself. Um, and so just like I feel like writing out your game plan, which Matt's been having me do before my heat the night before or the morning of or whatever, like really reduces those mistakes. And so like watching your heat, you're gonna write down in your game plan like if you're seeing. And when I was in Portugal, like I wrote down in my notebook, like second wave is always the best one. So like if you're looking at a wave with priority, and you're like, okay, I need a six. You're seeing it. This doesn't look like a six. Like that's instinct right there. Like if you like, okay, it doesn't look like a six, you don't want to go on that wave and then get a five, and you just told yourself that it wasn't a six. You just wasted, that whole minute or whatever of catching that wave, going back out. You lost your priority. It's just a huge mistake, especially in the dying minutes. So like if you wrote down your game plan, second wave's the one, and for sure that first one doesn't look like a six. You wait for that second one, and most of the time it's going to be there because it was in your game plan, but it doesn't come. You stuck to your game plan, and most times than not, you're usually going to make it with a game plan. So that's something that I feel like I encourage a lot of the younger surfers to do. Just write down their game plan, and then if they are watching and paying attention, then they should know, what's right and wrong, and don't second guess yourself.
Put yourself in that situation again. You've let go of a wave, you've lost that amount of time, and now you're in a high pressure situation, clutch. You need a score, time winding down. What kind of perception do you have of yourself of having an ability to get a score or produce one when you need a big score, a big number?
Yeah, I mean that's all the confidence you have to have in yourself. Like, you're gonna have some negative thoughts when you're in pressure situations. Like it's just like there's no doubt about that. But like if you have control with priority, and there's 2-3 minutes left, like that's plenty of time to get a wave that of substantial to make that heat if you're needing, a six or above, if you're not comboed. So I mean, even so, I guess I'll bring you back to the U.S. Open. I had priority, or I had second priority, and I kind of suckered Maxime into a little wave, knowing that I wasn't going to get the score. But if he would have gone, I'm going to regain priority. And there was like 30 seconds left, and I needed a five. And it was basically like, I know if I pull an air right now, I'm probably going to get that five if it's decent. And so that's basically you just know you're gonna do it before you even do it. And that's just the confidence you have to have. Like you can't ever be going into catching a wave thinking like, oh, probably can't do it. Like I think most people competing wouldn't be thinking that way. But that's basically it. It's just like knowing you have the ability to get that score, and just knowing you're about to do it, especially if you're going for an air. Like it's just like it's already done before you've done it.
I like that approach, Nolan. I like it. And now let's go to our first question. These girls actually went and saw you compete at the Moose Mobile Pro Gold Coast.
Hey Nolan, I'm Zahlia. And I'm Shyla. Hope you're well. We got a chance to watch you surf up at the Gold Coast, and I was wondering what you thought contributed to the great result at Snapper.
And I was just wondering what you thought the best advice was for young competitors.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. That's awesome. I made some new friends out in Australia, and next year when I come out, I hope to see you guys there again. And please introduce yourself. But yeah. So for the first question, about what was leading up, or like what helped me get the result. That's a good question. I feel like because leading up to the event, I've never surfed snapper, and I want to really pinpoint what I think is most beneficial. Obviously, Matt's going to be like one of the top ones, but like leading up to it, I went early to Australia, and I stayed at my really good buddy Harley's house, and his good friend Alex Hayes was staying there, and so when I got there, Alex Hayes was the one who took me to surf snapper for my first time, and I feel like him and all the Aussie buddies that I knew there really helped me with my first session being out there, just like knowing where to jump off the rock and like knowing where Marley Bowl is and just knowing the sandbars, I guess. So I guess I'd give thanks to Alex Hayes for showing me the ropes out of snapper. And then what also I think really benefited my result in Australia was the regional events, because all the regional events I did is really what taught me all game planning and like heat strategy, just like really, really dissecting it. And I think just going back to the game plan and not second guessing myself, just like knowing that I have the ability to make these heats, I think was just what benefited me the most. Like just being the most consistent surfer in the North America region going into snapper. Like I knew that a lot of people were going to be, not as fresh off of events like I was, and, maybe a little bit nervous or something going into the event. So I just needed to do me. And if that was working in America, it should work here in Australia. So I think I just stuck to my game plan, and I ended up just like being consistent and making heats. So I think that was definitely what I was thinking for that first question. But then the second question was what could benefit, young up and coming surfers. I can't remember if it was for competing or not competing.
Let's do both.
But let's do both. For competing, I mean, if you're very new to competing, I think, I've been preaching this the whole time is heat strategy. You don't have to be the best surfer in the water to make a heat. That's plain and simple. There's so many times in competitive surfing that I've seen almost every other heat you watch, you see an upset, and that's because that good surfer just made a mistake. So taking away mistakes in heats is the very biggest lesson to learn. If you're an amateur, you're probably not using priority, so you probably want to be a lot more aggressive than other competitive surfers. Don't be scared to get in someone's face, because that's how you grow as a surfer. That's how you really start taking heats. Look at Medina. That guy is a freaking bulldog. But yeah, I mean, from then on, just surfing against all these other surfers, competing against all of them is just gonna make you a better surfer. Your ability will get so much stronger, and your technique will get way better surfing with good surfers. I think just surfing with good surfers always is going to help anyone in any sort of sport, I guess. Being able to see what people can do on waves and just learning new techniques, I think is super beneficial. Yeah, I feel like that kind of that answers a little bit of both the question.
Hey, you did great, Nolan. You answered both, and you got a good crew around you too. John Mel, Tyler Gunter, Dylan Horde, among others. And now the next question is from Ned Hart. He's from West Off.
Hey Nolan, how are you? Just wondering what board you have in your quiver and what's your favorite or what's your go-to board?
Yeah, Ned. Yeah, so obviously I've been riding the Pizels this whole past year now. And my favorite board from them, it's a tough question because I ride a lot of different ones. Like Snapper, I rode a Radius. Most all my regional events that I did in America, which the waves kind of are average, I was riding the Highline. But then when I was in Hawaii, I was riding the Ghost a lot. And I really like the Ghost. But if I've had to just pick an all-around board, I would probably go with the Highline because I'm usually surfing pretty junky waves here in Orange County. But it's very close between the Radius and the Highline. Like, if you're surfing any sort of good waves, Radius is the way to go for sure.
Okay, Ned has another question for you too, Nolan.
Hey Nolan, do you have any strategies which you think have helped you in the past events or any which you're going to be using in the upcoming season?
I want to go to West Oz and meet Ned. Surf some good waves with him. I love that. That's a really good question. So these things, like strategies, I don't like giving away, okay?
Come on. Come on, Nolan, a little bit.
Well, it's pretty simple. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm gonna give you some sort of strategy that like everyone else kind of uses too, anyways. But like, I really, really think catching like I'm not. This is not what I'm gonna say. In my, um, it's all about the priority, really though. It's all about the priority, and so when you start off a heat, you either want to be the very first person to catch a wave, or you want to be like the last person to catch a wave because that means he had priority and waited for the very best wave. So I guess that's like I've been loving using these strategies just like in heats and stuff because even though I'm saying this like yeah this is so simple, catch the first one or the last one, but you have to do everything afterwards to make sure you minimize all those mistakes. So if you're the very first one, that's probably the best strategy that I would love to use, depending on how my heat turns out. Because after you catch the first wave, you're going to be first in rotation to have priority. So then you get to catch the next best wave, and you're going to have so much time at the end of the heat to use your priority the way you want to. So that's the base of like my heat strategy that I use. But then the second half is the most valuable. This is where all the juice comes in. So after you've caught your second wave with priority, you go back and you hopefully if everything's working out, you're in second or first place with over a 10 total. So you get to use your priority to your advantage. It's like playing chess, you know. You want to put your queen or your king wherever it is to block people. So with my priority at the second half of the heat, if I'm in first, you don't need to catch any waves. Like there's no point of catching waves unless you're in a chasing mode. So when you're in first, like Cole Houshman, if you watch Cole Houshman's heat in Portugal this last year, he caught only 2 waves. He had a 7 and like an 8, and then he sat for the last 15 minutes without catching a wave because he was controlling the heat. Nobody was even close to beating him. But so then at the end, like if someone was close, he was going to sit next to that person with his priority and make sure he didn't get the next best wave. Cole was always going to have the best wave of the heat whenever he wanted it. So that is the meat and bones of heat strategy. The end of it is where the most like valuable is. And if you're losing and you don't have priority in the second half of the heat, you better get priority because that's the only way you're going to get the best wave and make the heat with a high score. So that's my take on what I'm learning and what I like to use. And when I accomplish those things in my heats, it's just like the most gratifying thing ever because you're like, oh yeah, like nobody played it smarter than me. Like I was the smartest one in the water that day.
Nolan, I told you just a little bit. You gave us like 5 minutes, and now everybody's gonna know your heat strategies.
Yeah, I mean, this is just common sense, though, you know? I mean, Cole, like, nobody does it. Like, it's the thing is, like, Cole's the only other competitor that I've seen. Okay, it's simple. Everyone should do it. But Cole's the only other surfer that I've really seen actually, like, put it to use, really. Like, I mean, yeah, I've seen other people kind of doing it. But, like, just to not catch a wave the whole second half of your heat, that's, like, that's a lot of confidence right there. And he knew what he was doing. He didn't need to catch a wave. It's just like he's just sitting back like, yeah, I already waxed you guys.
Okay, I got
And
it.
it's good competitive mindset right there.
It is, and you see some of the best only do that too. Okay, before we let you go, we're gonna do a little rapid fire segment. Okay, you ready for this, Nolan?
Got it. Yeah.
All right. Hot take: Olympic qualification or CT qualification? Which one would you prefer?
CT all day.
Okay, cool. Is Kelly making the Olympics in Paris 2024?
I think he should. He deserves to be in the Olympics more than anyone.
That wasn't the question, though, Nolan. You said he should. Is he, though?
No.
Okay. Okay. And last but not least, are you qualifying for the 2023 championship tour at the end of this year?
I'm gonna say yes. I'll give you a hard yes, we'll just leave it there though. See how
Okay.
it goes. We got 2 more events.
Yeah, you got.
Stick to the game plan, you know?
Hey, that's all you got to do. You talk to us about heat strategies, about your moral victories, and about your self-confidence. Nolan Rapoza, thank you very much, and we wish you the very best of luck going into Brazil and Haleiwa.
Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate it.
Take the heat!
This has been a Liveheats production. If you've tried and tested any of the tips from the series, let us know via Instagram. Make sure you subscribe and follow Liveheats, and we'll see you next time for Take the Heat. Take the Heat is a podcast powered by Liveheats, the all-in-one platform for modern sports competitions. Try it now at www.liveheats.com.